Hi, and welcome to another edition of Speaking Of. My name is Steve Weiss, and I'm the InfoComp guy at Holly Group. And today we're going to hear from another voice in the wilderness regarding how artificial intelligence is something we as records information and information technology professionals should embrace and not fear. The voice I'm referencing belongs to one Jesse Todd, who's joining us from Australia at a very early hour to give us a service provider's perspective on what he describes as how AI is here to rescue the RIM function. Jesse, welcome, and thanks for joining us. As everyone knows, I always prefer our guests introduce themselves rather than have me simply read their bio. Can you tell us a little about yourself? You've got 8 seconds. Ready? Go.
7, 6. Steve, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. My name is Jesse Todd. I am the CEO and founder of EncompaaS. At EncompaaS, we use AI to help organizations understand what's in their data so that they can auto-classify it and prepare it for automated governance. It's an exciting time to be an AI company, and it's a real pleasure to be here with you today.
Yes, thank you. The pleasure's all mine and all ours, believe me. Okay, so as we get rolling here, when we spoke earlier, you made reference, you told a little story about comparing, I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm going to ask you to say it for reals. But something about AI is the equivalent of an assistant that's 6 years old or something like that.
Yeah, I heard a great analogy about it's a bit, I feel like AI is now the new cloud. Sort of 6-7 years ago, no one really knew what the cloud was, and you had to explain it to all of your friends and relatives. And there was this tipping point when everyone worked it out, except for that one old aunt you've got who still says, why are my photographs in the cloud? And you still have to explain it to them. And AI is a bit like that, where people are trying to grasp what it actually is, and people are coming to an understanding of it. But I heard this great analogy the other day, which made it sound quite simple, and I thought was quite effective. And someone said AI is like, current technology is like having a personal assistant who's a 6-year-old. They can do certain things with a lot of supervision and a lot of training, and in quite a rudimentary way. And after a while, you can leave that 6-year-old to do. They can put the round block in the round hole over and over again. And that's sort of like technology today. And what AI is like is, instead of having a personal assistant who's a 6-year-old, it's like having a personal assistant who's a 21-year-old. And when you say to them, well, where did you study? They say everywhere. And well, what language can you speak? All of them. What degrees have you done? I've got an MBA in everything. I've got a degree in everything. But what they don't understand is your business specifically. And so that 21-year-old can do an enormous amount more for you. They can automate a whole lot. They can take a lot of workload off you, but they can't do your job. So I think that's how I see of AI is what AI is going to do is take away the mundane aspects of your work so that you can focus on the high quality and the strategic stuff that actually probably that's what you're paid to do. And I think that's particularly true of information management. I think in information management, we're going to see this lovely disruption, which is rather than information managers trying to herd users into saving data into the compliance platform, or even administrating that platform and their business classification and doing all that sort of admin work and training work and user sort of, like I said, change management work. The AI is going to do all that for you. So then you can sit with the business and say, how do you strategically want to use this asset that's now protected and organized for you? And that's a great place for an information management worker to end up, I think. And that's the transition we're in right now. So it's not, we don't going to need less of you. It's actually, we have this beautiful asset that we need to take advantage of. AI is going to help us get it ready. And then you're going to become the conduit to the business partners to say, how would you like to use this asset? It's organized, it's secure, it's safe. It's now ready to be leveraged. Let's talk.
So yeah, I definitely agree with you. Where I like to start is even sort of a little bit further upstream than you just did, which is, and you touched on it, which is the whole point of having information, and I'll have to call it data, because if I say data, people will know that I'm making that up. You have that information for a reason. And it's because you want to do something with it. And even beyond classification and compliance and defensible disposition and all the usual things. You might want to use it to upsell customers because you have their profiles and, all those business imperatives. So the catchphrase around here is, what's the business problem you're trying to solve? So I come at it from within that context, and where I see AI playing the biggest role is being able to help do the things with the information faster. The magic, though, and the real opportunity for information professionals, to paint everybody broadly, is if the information's lousy, it doesn't matter even how grown up the AI tool is. You have to curate it. You have to make sure it's up to date and it's accurate, and you can find it in the first place. All of those things. And when I come at it, I say, well, all of those things, that's at the heart of the records discipline. So we really need to take those disciplines and apply them to information of all kinds, including structured data. And happily, although it took way too long for my satisfaction, I'm beginning to get inquiries from the data side about this thing that I'm calling, information governance, which would include the data governance and the records management and content management and even process management, all the managements. And I based on our prior conversation, I more than suspect that we share that basic philosophy, and that this is the reason not to fear AI. Because in the age of AI, it's going to require brim skills, for lack of a better phrase, to really get value from it. And that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, who understands an organization's data better than the RIM team in terms of globally, in terms of all the data, right? And I hitting on a point you said before, when we think of what AI is going to need or the benefits of AI, it's the ability, I think, to ask. You're going to start to be able to ask sophisticated questions of your data. And to your point, your data is your wisdom. It's like all of us. The more of it we've got, the more the deeper the question we can ask, the more possible answers that can come out of the data, the more value it is. However, you can't ask that question if you have a PDF with no text layer on it, with a bad title, so that the only metadata you've got is this is an important document, because AI can't use that. And so what AI wants, which is what RIM professionals we've always talked about, is I need to know that document, in fact, is an insurance policy. I need to know that, in fact, it's a workers' compensation insurance policy. I need to know the value of the policy and when the policy expires. That's all critical metadata. If I have that metadata, we can then manage it for compliance. But guess what? If I have that metadata, then to your point, then upstream, a person can say, show me all the policies that are going to expire.
Right.
With a $30 million limit on them. Like that's actually the question the end user wants. That's the question the business wants to ask of their data. And we're knowing that if we prepare that data correctly, yes, we can protect it, but now it's prepared for that upstream question. And it's that upstream question that AI is going to unlock, because it's going to be able to ask sophisticated questions, but that work has to be done. And so I think, to your point, is that the RIM professionals, we understand what metadata has to be extracted. We know how to do it. And in fact, there's now tooling coming to help us do that. And if we do it well, the organization is not only prepared and secured and compliant, it's actually its most important strategic asset is ready to empower this disruption that AI is going to bring. So it's, like I said, it's an exciting time. We're probably preaching to the choir, but this is the downstream. This is what I think that as RIM professionals, we're going to start getting from management is, why isn't my asset ready for AI? And we're going to say, well, we've been telling you about getting your asset ready for years. And so there's going to be this tension point, but the tension point is going to be, who's best help us to get this asset ready? And it's information management specialists and RIM professionals.
Now, let's get a little prickly.
Okay.
Most of what you said, actually at the high level, all of what you said, and I've said it too, we are kind of preaching to each other. Most of that doesn't require AI. We should be doing that now anyway, And I was going to say sadly, but it's good for the consulting trade. A lot of organizations still aren't. That the records and information folk don't have the visibility or the clout to have the rest of the organization take them seriously, frankly. I mean, I had a client, they just put in a whole new scanning operation because one department had reasons. They're desperate to do more of it for the rest of the, it was a big electrical utility. And as we made our way through all the different departments and geographies of this utility, people didn't even know they had a records department. They would love to have their stuff scanned, but they didn't occur to them to ask because they figured, well, you don't have anybody to do that. Now, the whole AI bit, to me, is a driver of that visibility, potentially. And that's where the opportunity is. Any organization that says our goal is to have AI needs to call me. Because the goal isn't to have AI. The goal is to solve a problem. And if AI is a tool that can help them do that, great.
I'm going to raise your prickly a little bit.
Good, do it.
Because you said that the ability to extract the metadata and to classify the document is something we can do today. But I would say that the techniques that we've used today actually can't deal with the scale of the challenge of taking petabytes of data on file shares as an example and auto-classifying it all. And that is actually where AI can make a difference. And so I do think that the AI toolkit in the first instance, and I say this a bit glibly, is that, we said the best first use case for AI is to prepare your data for AI. And in fact, I think the best use case for AI is actually for RIM professionals to say, actually, we can now use this to very quickly organize and classify data at a scale and a speed and an accuracy we haven't been able to do even with humans. And so if the RIM professional can do that, now use this tooling to go, actually, I'm going to take this mess and order it very quickly and standardize it and classify it and apply retention disposition to it, suddenly it's now prepared for the upstream. So I actually think that the AI is now the tool that can actually help the RIM professional be more effective than ever, and that effectiveness is actually going to drive their value. Whereas I think sometimes sometimes we get the pushback on as well, we don't hear about it because we're not necessarily well supported by IT as an example or by the organization. But our effectiveness has often been we rely on human capital to help us. It's often a body shop. How do we get stuff classified? If we can move from it being a slow and arduous process to no, it's done and it's ready and you're protected. It's a very different conversation a RIM professional can then have internally. And yes, how do we get ourselves escalated in the mind of the business by being an active partner or a positive partner, saying, actually, we're not the problem. I know that you think we are business. We're not the necessary evil. We're actually the cure, or we're actually the enabler of solving the problem, then becoming a partner to IT and a partner to the business to then to have data to enable these projects. And I'll just give you a practical example. I've been at 3 Microsoft conferences this week, and like the number, they've sold Copilot, which is, hey, this is the AI their front end to AI as they're talking about it. But pretty much all of their Copilot projects are slowing down because, yes, you can do your little pilot and it looks really good and the management team use it. Now I want to use it in anger for my business. It all relies on the quality of the data. And so we're already hearing from Microsoft, hey, we've got to get the data ready, otherwise our projects are going to stall. We're hearing from Gartner, 40% of Gen AI projects will fail this year because of the data quality. So the problem is going to suddenly get amplified by voices that don't have to be us. We've amplified that voice for a long time, but it's going to be Microsoft's and Gartner's and the exec team saying, hang on, we need access. This is our strategic asset that's going to power AI. Someone has to help us getting it ready. So there's an opportunity for us to put our hands up and say, hey, we can do that. We can do that with this tooling now, and we can do that quickly, and probably let's find the next use case, and we'll work with you on getting that data sorted, and then we'll work on the next use case. But we can be the partner that can say, hey, that data is now safe, secure, and ready to be used for AI, which is a very different role for a RIM professional, I think, and it's an exciting time.
Here's a question for you. I don't think it counts as prickly, although it depends on your answer, maybe. Do you consider machine learning AI?
No, it's machine learning, right? And I think it is the step, it's the precursor, or it's a foundational point, or it's the start of the evolution of AI. So the way I see the difference is that machine learning is, or supervised machine learning is, it needs lots of samples, it needs lots of training. The target it's looking at needs to be fairly structured so it can recognize it over and over and over again. So its pattern recognition is it needs a strong pattern to recognize what it's doing. And the evolution of that for AI is the pattern doesn't need to be as strong. The signals don't need to be as specific. Its pattern recognition capability is much more granular, like ours is. So it's the step between I need structure and a form, and I need to be able to see and I need to learn from that, and I can't vary from that too much too. Oh no, I can actually use a whole bunch of other indicators in geometry and sentiment to work out what's going on with that word, and that's the evolution from ML to AI.
What a good answer. No prickle here. I often describe it, the difference between self-learning and self-teaching.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rote, and it's really, really good. I also always hasten to add that, because to me, it's not necessarily an either or.
No, they're complementary.
They are complementary, and it really is a matter of, back to the business need, how much data are we talking about? And you want to do all of it? You want to do the most recent stuff? I mean, there are so many questions to ask before you even, in my mind, before you even get to the point of implementing AI or machine learning. Yeah. Because there are all these dependencies about scalability and privacy, which brings me to the next question. It's a variation on a theme that I'm getting more and more often as well, and maybe you do, I'm not sure, doing a somewhat different thing. I find that I'm being asked a lot lately about the difference between using the public AI engines and licensing one for themselves. And knowing, what your business is a SaaS service provider, I wonder from where you sit, I have a feeling, I'm going to write it down, that you're going to say the same thing that I always say. But I wonder if you could share something about that, because what triggered the thought was when I sort of magically said privacy. Here, at least, a lot of the people I talk to don't understand that when they try stuff with, they sign up for ChatGPT and they get a free account. That's fine, sorta, depending. But honest to goodness, please don't put your own company's stuff in there, because it just becomes fodder for the next free users test.
Yeah, I think this is part of the existential crisis of AI, right? Is it going to take my data and use it against me, or expose my business or my practices, or make vulnerable people, more vulnerable? And so I think some of that's about there's some misnomers about there. You can use models to understand. You can use models without exposing your corporate data to it. So I think there's an education path. It's a bit like the cloud again. We thought, if we put our stuff in the cloud, then it's publicly exposed and everyone can see it. Well, no, it's probably more secure than using your own file servers in a room, because they have more protections around them, sort of thing. So I think there are some models that if they're public models and you're giving your data to them, then that's probably, you should be playing with your own data with that. For your corporate data, every enterprise AI customer, whether that's OpenAI or if it's Google or Amazon, everyone who's got a model knows that corporates are never going to give them their data. They're never going to want that model trained on their data. Everyone thinks of their data as that's their corporate heart and soul and IP, and that's how they remain competitive, by keeping it within the four walls of their organization. So, I think as people get educated, you can use these models. You're not exposing your data, but you can still get a huge amount of benefit. I think the other thing that's going to change is we have large language models, which is sort of everything on the internet, and we're going to see the rise of small language models, which are models that you can build internally that are more focused on, say, it's legal data and the specificity of the vertical that you're in as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
The legal world there, you're going to build a model around that language that's specific to that vertical. And that's going to be cheaper to run and much more specific. And so we're going to see the ship move from the large language model to the small and to the private models, right? So there is going to be a shift. But I don't think it's as, I think there's this fear that if I use a model, my data's going to end up in there. But actually, most of the people who have big models are going, we know that that's not tolerable. And so there's going to be a pathway to use this model without exposing your data.
See, I would like to agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I do to the same degree or confidence level, at least.
Yeah.
And that's really just a reflection of the inquiries that I get. I'd like to think that that's true. The same way I would like to think all my information, because I buy things from Amazon a lot, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
For those watching the recording at some future date, it's December. That's what I mean by that as we record this. But I also know it's not true, that stuff gets out, despite the best of intentions. So I'm not even saying it's willful, although there are instances where I'm pretty sure it was. So I absolutely support everything that you've said, and it's all about within your organization to me. It's if you're signing up for the free account and you're just putting stuff out there, that's a mistake. If you are licensing it for your own use, even if it's hosted elsewhere, I have much less of an issue of that, because that's something that we've been doing since the 70s or before. We called it time sharing then, effectively.
Yeah.
A little different. That was more about horsepower than storage, but it's not a new concept. Oh, I also have a good time sometimes pointing out to people, you ever use an ATM machine? That's a cloud.
Yeah.
Because we don't think about it that way.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting, at some point we're going to work out, is the benefit greater than the perceived risk, right? Right now the perceived risk is higher than potentially the perceived benefit. And that makes us wary. And we're also wary of software companies, right? Just as you said, I think, part of the reticence is the Terminator has taught us that AI is coming to get us, and also that our experiences with AI stuff is that our data gets leaked all the time, and there's cyber risk, and there's all sorts of stuff. I think though that the benefit of AI is going to eventually, and the proof in that if I use OpenAI in my business to classify my data as an example, you're very quickly going to work out if your data is ending up in there. But the benefit of using the tool is going to outweigh it. And it's a little bit like someone said to me the other day, is we're beginning to trust AI to change lanes for us while we drive at 100 miles an hour. So if we're going to trust AI to do that for us,
not me.
Then what else are we going to trust AI for? So look, I think there's definitely a trust journey. And look, and what's interesting for us is from a compliance perspective, the trust journey becomes interesting about things like when we start to use AI to make decisions or to support decisions. What does that mean from a compliance perspective, from a record keeping perspective? How do we trap the decision making that is done by AI to support a business process that may end up in court in 4 years' time? So there's all these other interesting, intriguing sort of evolutions for us as records managers, information managers. With what does it mean when AI is used in anger? It's used for decision making, and what does that mean from a compliance perspective? So,
yeah, that seems like a good place to stop for the moment. We've been talking for a while.
Okay.
This has been really terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I hope you had a chance to have some breakfast or at least coffee beforehand. Jesse Todd, thank you very much. And if it's okay with you, I'd I'd like to darken your doorstep again in the future. And if you have other thoughts you want to follow up with, and folks watching and listening to this, we are among the most reachable people in the world. So feel free to float your thoughts and ideas and suggestions and complaints. Send the complaints to Jesse. That's what I always say. But thank you very much.
You can leave my email at the bottom for complaints. It's totally. I'm looking forward to them.
Okay, very good. Fair enough. Thank you.
Steve.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time.
An absolute pleasure, Steve, and always looking forward to our next discussion.
Oh, as am I.
Cheers.
This has been Speaking Of with Steve Weissman, the InfoGov Guy, a Holly Group production.